webinar. I'm just going to give a couple more seconds for a few more people to join. Hope everyone's having a good morning so far. Here we go, a few more attendees, lovely. Right guys, so first of all, hiya, my name's Hannah. I am going to be your host for today. We've got a great session planned for you all this morning. We're going to be covering quite a lot in the time that we have. So to kick off, we're going to touch upon common challenges SMBs face as they try to keep their businesses, networks and data assets secure. Then we will dive into some demos that we've got from Sam here. We are going to be exploring Defender for Business to help those I guess understand the capabilities of the tools available, both practically and from a holistic point of view. And then we're going to end the session with sort of any questions. So to kick off, that being said, I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping and some intros. So intro into who I am. Who's your host today? So I'm Hannah, I work at Stripe OLT. I support on the product development and marketing side here. I'm ultimately here to help customers identify and understand what tool sets and services are available within the Microsoft ecosystem and at Stripe OLT. So we've also got with us Sam and Nick. Sam, do you want to do a brief intro as to who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm Sam. I am the SOC lead here at Stripe OLT. I lead a 24/7 SOC service that protects a really diverse range of partners. The team and I spend almost every single day using Microsoft security tools like Defender to keep our partners safe. For this session, I've pre-recorded some demo videos to take you through what I consider to be some of the most useful features on Defender for Business. I'm also here to answer any questions to the best of my ability. So if you do have a question, please throw it into the chat. We can also have a short Q&A session at the end to discuss any questions that have come up.
Lovely, thanks Sam. And Nick, do you want to do a quick intro as to who you are?
So mine isn't quite as exciting as Sam's as security operations lead, but I work at a distributor called Ingram Microcloud who partner with Stripe OLT. So my kind of role and specialism is Microsoft Cloud Solutions, specifically security and Microsoft 365. So I've recently just left Microsoft actually after a few years, but yeah, I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to speak with you today.
Perfect, thank you, Nick. Quickly then, a little bit about housekeeping. So I'll be posting a few polls throughout. So if you see them pop up on screen, I'd love to gauge sort of what solutions and capabilities are beneficial to you. So would love for you to get involved. And then secondly, we've got quite a lot going on in this webinar, especially with the demos. So we're going to save Q&A till the end. So if you have any questions, just pop them in the Q&A sort of tab that's just at the very top of the screen here, and then we'll get those done at the end. Cool. So I'm just going to do a very, very quick introduction as to who Stripe OLT are, just for those of you that are new on the webinar and haven't been on any of our previous ones. So we're a modern work and security solutions partner. So basically, we're just very qualified in the modern work and security Microsoft stack. We're also in the top percentage of UK partners for security, but we have basically a threat protection specialization. So yeah, feel assured that Sam, who's on the call, definitely knows what he's going on about. We're also SMB specialists. So, I mean, that really varies. So we support organizations from 20 seats to 500 for IT, and then thousands of seats for those that operate within the security space. And we do that from our offices in London, Manchester and Bristol, which is where myself and Sam are today. So we've been going for quite a few years now. It's our 20th year this year. As you can imagine, we've probably gained quite a lot of experience in that time. We started as a small IT provider, and we've grown to become quite a trusted IT and security provider to enterprise customers. You can see a few of them on the screen. I'm not going to bang on about us anymore. Let's dive into the webinar and get into the good stuff. So Nick, I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you, Hannah. Before we do get started onto the good stuff, I just wanted to give a brief overview of the small and medium business market, or SMB for short. So did you know that SMBs actually represent around 90% of businesses globally? and they equate to around 50% of employment worldwide. So it's a massive, massive sector. Yeah, even though it is such a big sector, these businesses tend to go unnoticed, really. And you'd only ever really hear about those big global enterprises in the news, but things are rapidly changing, I would say, especially for SMB customers. And this is due to really the digitization of business. So we're no longer doing our business in just in four walls in a shop. We are now online. We're in more and more different places. And also our workers, they're also in different places as well. So they're working across different geographies on more flexible schedules as well. So not just your 9 to 5. And also they also probably are doing work on work devices, but also personal devices, so mobile phones and laptops and other things like that. So this is quite a new landscape potentially for some businesses. And while it is great because we can work remotely and on personal devices, it can pose some huge challenges, especially from a security management standpoint. So on to the next slide, please, Hannah. So throughout this fairly short webinar, I'm going to use this shop analogy. So hopefully we can all kind of understand that. But that's kind of, traditionally how businesses protected their investments with some sort of alarm system. So that was how you would sort of protect your shop. You would lock those doors, and when the day was done, you would close those shutters, and that would be it. You would be fairly secure. But as businesses tend to grow, more and more doors come into play. There's more windows. There's basically more ways to get in. So yeah, before we had that single building where everyone came to work, but you've now still got that building potentially, but you've got more and more places, including online, that are at threat from attack. So yeah, with all these new places to do business, we also have to consider locking those sort of locations down as well. So when we look specifically at cyber security, ransomware attacks on SMBs now represent almost half of all cyber attacks. And that number, let me tell you, is continuing to rise at a rapid rate. And this kind of debunks that myth that SMB businesses or small and medium businesses are not on cyber criminals' radars. It also kind of disproves the view that SMBs are safer because they are quite small and quite obscure. And the risk actually is quite great for an SMB sized customer because they don't have the resources of these large organizations. They may not have the skill sets or the technical knowledge. And again, this is an evolving thing. Cybersecurity right now could be very different in the future. So yeah, it's ever evolving. So on to this next slide. So I don't really want to scare you all. This is not what this is designed to do, but it's just more to highlight the situation that we're in. So one of the biggest drivers of this threat landscape is the fact that cyber criminal gangs and organizations are actually businesses themselves, and they're out there to steal your data. And threats have become quite automated. So gone are the days when it was very, very, very manual, and they're quite indiscriminate as well. So attacking customers with common methods such as phishing and password spraying are kind of one of the most common ones, and that's at a massively high scale. And then we've got ransomware attacks as well. So that's quite an efficient way for an attacker to get hold of you, in fact, to infiltrate you, but not actually get hold of your data. And then we've got online criminals now can buy tool sets off the shelf, which kind of lowers that barrier to entry for a threat actor. And that's where the indiscrimination comes in. So they can target anyone at scale quickly and easily. So they're not really bothered if it's a large organization or a small organization. They just want to get some money out of you. But SMBs are definitely at risk, and you definitely need to protect yourselves. And in many cases, it's not about when a breach will happen. It's not about when a breach will happen. It will happen eventually. So you may have had that single physical location in the past, but now we're looking at satellite offices, a remote workforce, multiple locations, multiple devices, and also potentially not just your Windows operating system, but other operating systems as well. So these are all very vulnerable to an attack. And then I'm just going to cover off some other stats, which I quite like. So if cybercrime was a country, it would have the third largest economy in the world. And on average, per attack, it costs an SMB customer $108,000. And that could be enough to put you out of business, or put a lot of companies out of business. And then if you do get an attack and you get through it, what is the cost to your reputation? Could your customers have lost faith in you as an organization. So it's all kind of things to think about. And I was reading a recent report the other day, and businesses on average spend about 12% of their IT budget on cybersecurity. But one thing I will say is this is rapidly increasing. And that kind of leads us nicely on to why we are here today. So Microsoft Defender, which you will hear me say a lot today, is an endpoint detection and response solution. So it offers enterprise grade security at an affordable price for those small and medium sized businesses. And it gives you that endpoint detection and response, but also threat and vulnerability management. And it's all powered by this intelligently automated investigation and response system. So one of Microsoft's many advantages are they are getting such a vast amount of data daily from the world's largest organizations, and the big benefit to those SMB customers that all of that data and intelligence is going to be shared with us. So even if you are a small customer, you're still getting all the value that Microsoft's receiving on a daily basis, which I think is something like 3 trillion per day. So it's absolutely immense. It's easy to use. So Microsoft wanted to provide that solution that was easy to set up, and also it can detect and remediate threats automatically. And there's a really, really good wizard-based onboarding system as well for Windows devices. So it's nice and quick and easy. And then we've got cost effective. So Microsoft can package all of this up with your Office licenses into one bill from one supplier. And because it's Microsoft, you know it's going to be reliable and it's going to work. And again, as well as our reputations being on the line, because we don't want to be open to a threat, Microsoft's reputation is also on the line and how they deal with these threats and your businesses. So yeah, it's also got third-party research sources like Gartner and Forrester that are rating Defender as one of the leading tool sets in the market. And leading organizations globally choose Microsoft and Defender for a reason. And Stripe OLT's SOC use this technology as part of their wider security stack. So it's very widely used by some of the biggest organizations on the planet. And then lastly, we've got flexible. So you can choose the plan that works for you, but whether that's standalone or upgrading a license that you've already got to Business Premium, there are lots of options. And we'll go through a little bit more detail on those things as we get towards the end. But now we are going to head into some of the good stuff. So we're going to explore threat management, attack surface reduction, endpoint detection, investigation capabilities. And first up, we are going to look at identification. So describing all of these components in Defender for Business in technical terms can overwhelm customers. It can overwhelm me. But I like to tie it all together with this kind of building security analogy. So that should be quite easy for everyone to relate to. So next gen antivirus is like that lock on your front door. So while it's great to have that lock, a lock alone isn't going to deter, a really determined criminal. But the solution to that wouldn't be just to get a bigger lock. It's going to, the attacker could just get a bigger hammer or a bigger crowbar. So threat and vulnerability management is going to help to reduce that exposure by discovering potential vulnerabilities, and that could be unpatched software or misconfigurations. Or in the building analogy, which we'll keep going back to, it's looking at those windows and other doors and how secure they are. So this service, it also includes real-time discovery of these vulnerabilities. In addition to Defender, can enhance protection through context-aware prioritization. So that is basically understanding the order of priority and putting that into play. And then you've got a built-in remediation processes as well. So Sam is now going to kindly show us some lovely demos on these capabilities.
Defender for Business Vulnerability Management can be summarized into the 3 main sections that we've already gone over: real-time discovery, context-aware prioritization, and end-to-end remediation. But what do they actually mean within the bounds of Defender itself? I'll use these 3 sections as a bit of a handrail to go from point to point with vulnerability management. I'll start with real-time discovery. From my perspective, real-time discovery is best defined as awareness. Half of the battle with vulnerability management is knowing what software and hardware is deployed within your organization and whether that content is vulnerable. On the left-hand pane of the Defender Security Center, I can navigate to endpoint vulnerability management, and within the inventory section, get a comprehensive overview of what's deployed within the organization. Software, browser extensions, and certificates are all available to view here. Under software, I can drill down into a particular piece of software, like Wireshark, and understand the threat context of it. Wireshark, for example, has 1 high and 2 medium severity vulnerabilities associated with it. I can see what devices have it installed, and I can also view any related security recommendations that Microsoft deem as appropriate. Like here, we can see to update Wireshark. Alongside the organizational inventories, we can also look into the device specifically. So for Desktop 01, within the inventories, I can see that it's got Wireshark, virtual machine firmware, and Acrobat installed. Defender gives us an almost real-time view of the software that is deployed within your organization. If your procurement procedures have got holes in them, if your users are able to install software of their own volition, it's a really nice way of keeping on top of things and making sure you don't have any unexpected consequences from having software with critical or high vulnerabilities kicking around in your environment. Now, these consequences can be somewhat mitigated thanks to context-aware prioritization. It's essentially how Microsoft uses all of the information at its disposal to help you prioritize where to focus your attention and what security controls would best benefit your environment. Defender considers multiple points, such as the security controls you already have in place, any security alerts that you've received, whether a vulnerability has an exploit, and whether any of your current controls would mitigate that threat. It combines this environmental context with its real-world threat intelligence to help recommend the best options and where you should be focusing your time. Within security recommendations, it's not just software and patching. You've got recommendations for attack surface reduction controls, recommendations for firmware, for BitLocker controls, operating system controls that you can deploy, security controls for your firewall. It's meant to be a comprehensive list of things that you can do to harden your environment against exploitation. If we consider the real-world scenario where you've deployed a piece of software that has a high or critical vulnerability that is being actively exploited, but there isn't a patch or a fix available for it, you could deploy a number of these security controls that would essentially mitigate the risk of someone taking advantage of that vulnerability by completely blocking off the way in which they would do that. Another aspect of context-aware prioritization is in relation to CVEs and software weaknesses. So with our previous example of Wireshark that's been kicking around in the environment for 16 days, we can see that there are no active exploits available for the vulnerability, and alongside that, no alerts associated with it. If that were the case, Microsoft Defender would use that context to assign a higher priority to the remediation. Using the Defender end-to-end remediation capability, I can go into the update here and I can request a remediation of it. By opening a ticket in Intune, providing a remediation date, assigning a priority, and any notes that you'd like for your team, you're able to send this across and raise the ticket. You can add mitigation actions if you don't want users able to use the software. Once submitted, this will populate within the Intune management portal. Looking here, we can see that a security task has been updated into pending. All it takes is for your team to go in, accept the remediation request, and they can start rolling out the appropriate patch. And that's it, a comprehensive overview of Microsoft Defender for Business's vulnerability management offering. I hope some of the context has helped you understand how you can apply that in real-world situations and in your own environments. Next up, we'll be looking into attack surface reduction rules and how they can benefit your organization. Defender for Business vulnerability management can be summarized into the 3 main sections that we've.
Thank you, Sam. Superb work. So As Sam's already mentioned, we're going to look at attack surface reduction now. So if we go back to that sort of building analogy, in addition to addressing vulnerabilities, a security professional that understands the risks will recommend additional things that you can do to reduce that risk and secure that building. For example, locking those windows in addition to the doors, ensuring only authorized users have keys to the doors and those windows. So these are all aimed at reducing that potential risk that you might have. This is very much like attack surface reduction. So it's reducing those opportunities for a potential breach. So this includes all the places where an attacker could compromise devices or networks. So reducing that attack surface means turning off unused features, which leaves those attackers with fewer ways to perform an attack. And again, we're going to explore this in a bit more depth with a lovely demonstration from Sam. So over to you, Sam.
Attack surface reduction rules are one of my favorite features within Defender. As a security practitioner, it can be a bit of a curse understanding just how many ways threat actors can exploit an environment. A lot of traditional security solutions look at hardening the perimeters of an organization, but lack effective internal controls. Unfortunately, exploits happen. People fall victim to phishing emails, they download malicious content. Threat actors get extremely clever at trying to find ways to subvert products like Defender and to bypass their detections and threat intelligence data. Microsoft has plugged this gap by enforcing attack surface reduction rules that allow us to target particular software behaviors that are commonly exploited. There have been a few times where I've been called into an incident where if ASR rules had been enforced, the incident would have been completely prevented. In this demonstration, I'll walk through how to set up ASR rules. I'll also give a bit of an example of what the end users see when an ASR rule is triggered, and what the admins see from the perspective of Defender when investigating these incidents. Setting up attack surface reduction rules is fairly easy. There are multiple ways to do it, but I'll be giving a quick summary on the method via Intune, as I think it represents the information in a much more digestible format. There are a few prerequisites that are required, which you can find listed in the Microsoft documentation, alongside requiring the Defender for Business licensing. Providing that Defender is configured and deployed, we can hop into endpoint security within the Intune portal and click on Attack Surface Reduction. We can create an attack surface reduction policy, select our platforms, select the profile we want to apply, which is the reduction rules. From there, we can give our policy a name, add the configuration settings. So which rules do we want to configure within Defender for ASR to react? There are a variety of different configuration settings that you can apply. Block will prevent an action entirely with no interaction from a user. Audit will allow all activity, but provide metrics on how often a block would have been triggered. And Warn will provide a toaster notification informing the user that the activity is dangerous and do they really want to proceed. Alongside each of the rules, Microsoft gives you a quick summary of what the rule does, as well as providing a link to the Microsoft Learn documentation, where you can find out more about the attack surface reduction rules as a whole, and also the impact that each individual rule might have if it's switched on in your organization. Once you're happy with the configuration settings, you can apply a scope. For example, if you wanted to exclude some devices or groups from it, you are perfectly able to. In this instance, we want it to apply to all the devices we have in our environment. You can save the policy, and once done, it should deploy to all of your devices within about an hour. Now we'll hop across into our test environment, where I will abuse our poor demo VM, trigger some exploits, and I'll show you just what ASR is capable of and what a user would see. Now, I've just opened a macro-enabled Word file. For those of you that don't know, macros can be commonly exploited by threat actors. It's a nice way of running automated tasks simply by opening a Word document. Very useful for phishing. Now we've got our security warning. we've had the content block pop up, but because it's in worn, it allows me to unblock if I like. So if I click unblock, it allows me to continue using the document and won't remove it. I can now enable the content, and oh, lo and behold, the content has again been blocked because cmd.exe running in the background was deemed to be suspicious. Now, opening up my test folder on the desktop, I've got a zipped file that contains a PowerShell script. This PowerShell script is a payload for the meterpreter reflected injection attack. We can see here Defender's blocked the activity outright with no option to unblock it. This is ASR in block mode. You can open up the virus and threat protection pane, see a little bit more about the file that's been blocked and the detection, and request to quarantine, remove, or allow it on the device. Hopping into the Microsoft Defender portal now, we can click into incidents and we can have a look at the activity that's just been blocked. Under Meterpreter Post-Exploitation tool, we can click into the alert itself. The alert story gives us a step-by-step breakdown of any relevant activities that have occurred regarding this alert. Here we can see that Defender has picked up on the activity of me opening the macro-enabled Word files and flagged it as suspicious and potentially part of this activity. At the bottom here, we've got our PowerShell script and the fact that Defender has detected and quarantined the file and flagged it as the Trojan dropper plotty.c. If we wanted to, we could open the file page or download the file and detonate it in a sandbox environment for further investigation. The file pane gives us an understanding of the file's metadata, the file path it was presented in, file hash, whether it's signed or not, and any activity observed for that file within your environment. We can review any ASR blocks or actions within the device timeline itself. Here we can see the block office applications from creating child processes rule was triggered. We can see why it was triggered, when, what happened, any associated processes or points of concern, and any actions that Defender would take. Again, we've got another one down here for credential stealing using lsas.exe. You can set up custom alerting or custom action off the back of these alerts being generated within the timeline, but also really good for going back and auditing any activity as it occurs. And that's it, a comprehensive look at attack surface reduction.
Good stuff, Sam. Nice and slick. We're now going to look at the next essential part of Defender for Business, and we have endpoint detection and response. So going back to that initial analogy and what we've got on the screen, this would be the equivalent to a security system with sensors, cameras, alarms, and automated notification systems. So not only is everything recorded when that threat is detected, the built-in protections can activate to alert to the presence of a threat as well. And then while next-gen protection is designed to prevent most threats, this technology is a pre-breach technology by design. So many customers need that additional layer of security to handle a threat that gets through. And this is what we consider post-breach protection. So Defender for Business has got built-in endpoint detection and response, also known as EDR, which you may be familiar with. And this provides that additional layer of advanced attack detections. So it's designed to shut down those scenarios where an attacker has gained a foothold in the environment, and it records all of the activities on the system. So when that threat is detected, alerts can be created in the system, and then it can be correlated as well. So alerts related to the same attack or attributed to the same attacker are all aggregated into what we call an incident. And this will provide you with that clear picture of what has happened, as well as all the devices and the users that were involved as well, so it can shut it down and prevent it from happening again. And again, we've got a lovely demonstration from Sam coming right up. Set for us.
I'm now going to demonstrate next generation protection and endpoint detection and response by using a real world scenario to demonstrate how Defender picks up alerts, how they can be triaged within Security Center, and what live response actions you can take to secure your assets and infrastructure. One of the reasons the SOC runs 24/7 is that threat actors can strike at any time. You can be working away creating a demo and you receive an email. Now, whilst this isn't the most sophisticated of phishing emails, you'd be surprised how often I've seen users fall for something very similar. Using an external file sharing platform, as well as having a zipped file to host the content, are common ways that threat actors try and bypass our defenses. Defender, of course, has controls to prevent against these items, but for the purpose of this demo, I've switched them off. Now, if we open our file and try and run it, as with the ASR, the file becomes blocked. Even opening the file doesn't allow us to run it within the environment. Defender has stepped in and prevented it from running. This is the same exploit that I used previously. I just wanted to demonstrate a different delivery mechanism and the fact that Defender will still pick it up even if it's in your temp file or your downloads. As before, clicking into the alert within Defender allows us to see the alert story and the breakdown of all the events that Defender believes are related. We can see all the testing I did with the ASR files, the original time I ran the PowerShell script, and the fact that this new event occurred from a different folder location and use notepad.exe to try and execute it. If I come to the top here, I'm able to run an antivirus scan on the device. This is a useful precaution to pick up any other flagged files or malicious content that could have been missed. Once you've submitted that, you can check into the Action Center to see if the scan kicked off successfully. We can also come back up to the desktop breakdown here and initiate some further action. We can isolate the device, which would prevent any outbound network connection. We can also restrict app execution, which essentially means any software or application that is not signed by Microsoft cannot run. This is an incredibly useful feature. Essentially, if an end user tries to interact with anything that isn't signed by Microsoft, they receive the following pop-up. Blocking access to unsigned applications or third-party pieces of software in this way is incredibly beneficial and is a really strong move against things like ransomware, where they try and gain escalation and persistence through the use of unsigned scripts and other processes. Now, if these other processes don't appear in the alert story, you can come to the device timeline, which is a step-by-step look at every single event that occurred on that device. You can specify a look back period that you want to use. You can work your way through and flag particular events of interest for you to either look at next time or to get one of your colleagues to dig into at another point. It gives you a really good idea of everything that's occurred on the device, and it's really useful for working your way back through, finding that initial access piece, finding the root cause of an event, and allowing you to understand why it occurred and where it came from. For this particular incident, I can see exactly where I downloaded the original zip file from. I can see any events that were triggered alongside it. I can also create a stop and quarantine rule for that particular file based on its file hash, its path, and other indicators. So if that file happened to be seen anywhere else in the environment, it would be stopped and it would be quarantined. Really, really useful for things like sustained email campaigns, where users might have interacted and downloaded the content, they just haven't opened the original file and triggered the payload inside, so it hasn't flagged up in an alert. Another really useful tool that's provided to you by Defender are the live response session capabilities. You're able to terminal into a device, and using a set list of commands, you can move through the device environment and find out further information on files and perform remediation actions. Here you can see I've used CD and directory commands to bounce through the environment to the downloads folder and understand exactly what exists in the folder. I've asked for more file info on the PowerShell test script that was found within. It gives me information on the metadata, file hash, bits of information like that. I can also use it to check for any jobs running, any scheduled tasks that have been created, any changes to registry keys, common things that occur during an exploit you can search for really, really quickly. It makes things a lot smoother, especially when you're in the midst of investigation in an incident that might be affecting multiple devices at the same time. As an example, myself and a colleague responded to a ransomware incident. It was affecting multiple devices in our client's environment. We're able, using live response, to terminal into the devices, and we could see line by line as the ransomware was moving through the directory and trying to encrypt files. We were able to upload remediation packages, download files, block content, and do all the actions we needed to help respond to that threat in real time. It's an incredibly useful tool and highly flexible in the right circumstances. Once you've performed live response and remediated any threats as you deem it appropriate, you can come into here and you can manage the alert by adding a closing classification and any comments. This is really useful for auditing purposes. For example, every quarter, you and your team could come back, you could review all of the alerts that you've received in that quarter and better understand the threat against your environment and the most common threats that you're exposed to. That way you give yourselves direction and understand where you need to apply yourselves in terms of your security roadmap and the security controls that you enforce to better protect your environment using real statistics and not guesswork. I'm now going to demonstrate next generation.
Stuff, Sam. So we've got one more capability set to show you today, and that is automated investigation and remediation. So Defender for Business doesn't simply alert you to a breach and just wait for you to act. It's going to shut it down for you and isolate the device as quickly as possible to avoid that potential fallout. And the technology in automatic investigation, it uses these algorithms and it takes immediate action to resolve breaches, which are based on processes that security analysts have come up with. So, for example, if a malicious process is discovered, Defender for Business will restrict that code execution. It will remove registry keys, which are kind of designed to restart it. And again, Sam is going to take us through this one, which is the last of our demos for today.
Finally, I'm going to give a quick summary of auto investigation and remediation. As far as automated security actions go, Defender's offering is pretty good. You can utilize the features to detect, investigate, and respond to threats without having to touch anything yourself. It saves you time and effort without negatively impacting your security posture. To configure it for deployment, you can navigate to endpoint settings in the Microsoft Defender portal. Under permissions and device groups, you can specify a custom device group that you want to apply the policy to. I'd recommend any at-risk endpoints or critical infrastructure to be set to different remediation levels at your discretion. You have the option of no automated response, semi, or full response. The difference essentially is that all actions under the semi-response capacity require administrator level approval before being able to take effect and actually quarantine items. When specifying the devices, you can either use naming conventions, domain, tagged group assignments, and operating systems to specify your scope. If you wanted to, you could also restrict access of device groups to particular users. That's the configuration side of things done. Now we can look at how Defender presents information that's part of automated investigations and responses. We can either review automated responses when they are raised as an incident or alerts, as I've shown previously, or we can navigate to the Action Center. We're able to filter for any automated actions that have taken place historically. Looking at the most recent automated actions that have occurred, let's use this quarantine file action for our example. If we click into the investigation page, Defender provides us with an investigation graph, which makes it easy to immediately understand the impact of an event and the activity that's occurred. As part of this investigation, Defender has analyzed about 2,000 separate entities. We can see that file processes, drivers, and common persistence methods are all within scope and completed in about 5 minutes, which would be very hard for an analyst to replicate manually. You can click into the different evidence summary sections, and Defender will give you an idea of what it found and whether there was any threat associated with it. By expanding on the evidence section, it provides all evidence that it believes was actually malicious and related to the exploit. By opening this tab, we can see further information on the finance.iso file that was blocked and deemed to be malicious. We get the original file hash, any virus total information, how often it's been seen worldwide, all the information that you would expect, especially when you're investigating an alert. You can add and allow or block list for that file, and you can open the file page for even further information. Under the log section, you get a step-by-step breakdown of every automated action that occurred. From the outset here, when Defender quarantined the file, we can see the original file path. The system then checks to see if automated remediation was covered, and we can see that the level is fully automated. Defender then prepared the machine for investigation by establishing a session and started doing its investigation procedure. It skipped the file path option because it already had it. It then moved on to getting all active network connections currently displayed on the device and all drivers currently running and installed. It worked its way through and completed all the actions that I'd expect from any investigation performed by an analyst, again in about 5 minutes. This is a really effective tool and allows you to be flexible and consistent when you maybe don't have the manpower to have an analyst review every single alert in real time. Obviously, I'd thoroughly recommend anyone going back and reviewing what Defender has done, but from my experience, it's always been reliable and made good choices. And that brings us to the end of my demonstration on auto investigation and remediation within Microsoft Defender for Business.
Thank you, Sam. That is probably one of my favorite ones because we're all busy people, right? And the fact that Defender can do all this automatically for you and pretty much right first time is spot on. And 5 minutes isn't actually a lot of time to do some of the things that it was doing. And if you were to do that individually as a person, it could take you much longer. So yeah, brilliant. Hopefully they were useful. I know that demos bring things to life for me, and it's better than me just talking at you. But before we move into the Q&As, I wanted to kind of wrap up and do a quick summary on what we've heard so far. So Defender for Business is going to give you that enterprise-grade device protection. So it's going to utilize the wealth of Microsoft's trillions of signals that it gets daily from all those large organizations across the world and bring it to even to the really small organizations. It's easy to use, so it's got a lovely user-friendly tool set where you can get up and running really quickly. It's got out-of-the-box driven capabilities as well for Windows devices. It's cost-effective, so it can be bundled with your current Microsoft Business licenses. So if you've got Business Basic or Business Standard, you can upgrade to Business Premium. It's top-rated as well, so third-party sources, external from Microsoft, love it, and that's why Microsoft really are one of the leaders in this industry, and it's got flexible licensing as well, so you can choose the plan that works for you and you can buy it as you like. On that licensing topic, I'm going to delve a little bit deeper. So there are quite a few solutions that Microsoft offers to enable Defender for Business. I'm not going to go through every single line on this slide because there is a lot of things on there, but you can see that Microsoft offer a great number of essential security tools within Defender for Business, especially for SMB size customers. And Microsoft class is an SMB size customer. For those that don't know, I didn't until I joined Microsoft, but they class them as 300 people or fewer. So it's giving you that enterprise level security for 300 users or less. When you look at that Defender for Endpoint Plan 2 Enterprise SKU, it gives you a lot of those capabilities, which is absolutely superb. And it can be bought standalone, as shown here, or you can upgrade it with your current Office or Microsoft 365 license. So if you've got, as I said, a Business Basic or a Standard license, you can upgrade to Business Premium, and that can be done immediately. And it's very cost effective when you bundle it together with Microsoft Office software. And then we've got different contract lengths and billing methods as well. So there's lots to suit. You can do pay up front, you can do pay monthly, but Microsoft want to make sure that their products are sort of flexible and suit everyone's needs and budgets. But if you do want to know kind of more about the licensing and the costs, just get in touch with the guys at Stripe OLT. I'm sure they'd be delighted to talk you through it. And so finally, we're going to move on to some Q&As if we have any. So let's have a quick look now. And if we don't have lots of Q&As, I can always pull upon some FAQs as well. And Sam, I don't know if you've got any questions that you commonly get, which would be worth highlighting as well. I'm going to quickly have a look at some of my FAQs. So how do I try or buy Defender for Business? So you can get a trial for Defender for Business. So if you wanted to trial it before you buy it, you can definitely do that. Again, get in touch with the guys at Stripe for that one. Is there a limit on how many users can be licensed for Defender? For Defender for Business. So it's designed for small and medium businesses up to 300. So as long as you're 300 or less, that's the license which you can buy. If you're more than 300, then that's when you go on to the endpoint plan 1 and 2 licenses. How many devices can I onboard with Defender for Business? So you can onboard and secure up to 5 devices per user license. So if you've got servers, that is an additional license, I will say. And again, if you want to know more about that, we can pick that up with you separately. Is there anything, Sam, that you commonly would come across that you think is worth highlighting?
I think quite a lot of my experiences in terms of kind of the operational knock-on for things. So Defender's really good at raising alerts in the right way. So obviously, if you haven't got oversight of the alerts that are being raised or the issues that Defender finds, you can't do much about it. So it's quite flexible in the way that you're able to set up email notifications. So if you're an IT ops manager, you can spool at Defender, run the automated investigations package in the background, go about your day, and as Defender needs to notify you about things, it will send you an email notification. It's super slick and very helpful if you're busy.
Amazing. Okay, guys. Yeah, no, thank you so much. Just out of curiosity, Sam, of all the, I know we've just gone past the Q&A section, but just quickly, of all of the capabilities there, what do you think is the number one capability that people need?
I'd say the number one is the endpoint detection and response feature, right? So Microsoft has got so much threat intelligence. They see so much every single day in the wild, from legacy threats to the brand new stuff that threat actors are making use of. And they update that regularly. And having those detections and the blocks in place to prevent that as soon as Defender sees it is really, really strong. But also, I know you only asked for one, but ASR is a close second, because we hold ourselves accountable, don't we? We don't always say that it's always going to block. Sometimes something might get through. Microsoft is very well aware of this, and that is why ASR rules, again, are really important.
Yeah, sorry, that was a bit of a hard question for you because I'm pretty sure all of them are very valuable, but thanks, Sam. Cool. Anyway, guys, right, before we close off, just a quick reminder that we're more than happy to take you through any sort of licensing options, again, go through any of the capabilities on a discovery call, so please just get in touch with us, reach out, and one of our team will go through that with you. In addition, I've just placed the link for further documentation regarding Defender for Business. If it's something you wanted to sort of explore independently, our team are always here for support if and when you need us, basically. This video will be available on our YouTube channel as well, so you can always reference back. Yeah, and I just want to say thanks so much for joining, everybody, and yeah, we hope to see you again soon.